Oh, we're live.
Live? Okay.
Yeah.
Hey, everyone. I'm currently shitting myself in terror at what Amanda will say about The Name of the Wind. And I'm always terrified of live shows, so the terror is double. Hi, I'm Leanna. If you didn't know, this is Amanda from the Naughty Librarian. And we're going to talk about The Name of the Wind by Patrick Rothfuss. So I've read it now twice.
Wait, look how floppy this book is. Much floppy.
This is the illustrated edition per se, so it has like pictures and shit.
Oh, mine's just like much floppy. It's very satisfying.
I do love a floppy paperback, not gonna lie. So satisfying. Yeah. It's easier to read too.
It did just stay
like the hardbacks. Yeah, hardbacks you kind of have to like crack them.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm just gonna assume people are watching know what Name of the Wind is, and if they don't, please.
I think a lot of people know what it is.
Right? Yeah, we don't have to be like, it's about this, and yeah. If you don't know, that's on you. I did wear my Lithographs Kvothe shirt, and Kvothe is made out of text from the book. You could say I'm a fan. You could say that. Okay, Amanda. I think everybody who's ever heard of me knows how I feel about this book, so I think they don't know how you feel, including me. I don't know.
Yeah. Well,
so go ahead.
I've given you hints. So this is my first time reading it. I did not hate it. I read it. I gave it 4 stars. Because objectively speaking, I understand that it's a good book. I think it's well written and it's a great fantasy story. I couldn't give it 5 stars. Basically, it's like kind of between a 3 and a 5, so I went with 4 because it's the average. And
so it was borderline a 3.
No, it has to be a 4, and I will explain. But this might be a particular quirk to me, who went to art school and studied theater theory.
Okay.
So when I was in like theater theory, I'm going to say a bunch of stuff. I just want to get it out of the way so people don't think I'm being like harsh or anything. I'm just like going to say something about character motivation that I think is like related to this book.
For Kvothe?
So when you're in theater theory class and you're learning like structure of a story and a character arc, basically a character has to want something, and it can't want a verb. It has to be a something. And then they have to need something else to achieve what they want. That's a character arc. So I think the point of the story is, I don't think this is the point of the story. The protagonist of this story is Kvothe in the present and not Kvothe in the past. Mm-hmm. So 90% of the book is Kvothe in the past, which is, it's telling you the base of why Kvothe is like he is now. But if you look at the book from the perspective of the protagonist, who is Kvothe in the present, he starts the book at one way and he ends it the exact same way. There is no character growth or development. He's the same. So from that perspective, I'm like, is it successful? I'm not sure. Because I don't know. For Kvothe, I try to do his character arc because I went to art school and I do this.
So like to make it clear when you're discussing the 2 Kvothes, maybe you want to say Kote's character arc, because Kote is him in the present, is how he refers to himself. Okay. So like Kote's character arc versus Kvothe's, to like, so you don't have to keep saying present, past.
I feel like I'm going to mess up those 2 names.
Okay. You do you. I don't want to mess you up. Go, you do you.
But basically, I think, our protagonist, Kvothe, in the present.
The innkeeper.
The innkeeper. I think he wants absolution. You could argue that, but I feel like he wants to understand himself. And so he needs to tell the story so he could like talk it out and feel like he's going to come to some understanding about himself. And then the end goal is like him either changing or staying the same. How is this going to end? Like, I hope his end goal is to be like, okay, I'm going to like get out of like my gutter I've left myself in,
Well, to that point, I mean, I hadn't thought of like defining it this way before, but like if we're talking about who has a goal, it's not actually Kvothe, it's Bast. Mm-hmm. Bast is the one who set this in motion. Bast is the one that wants Kvothe to change again. It's not because Kvothe's like, I'm an innkeeper now. That's me now. I'm just sad. And Bast is having none of it. So Bast has like got a chronicler in, has been like, hey, Reshi, tell your story. You feeling good? You feeling good? Yeah, we're back in there. We're back in there. Yeah. Don't fuck this up, chronicler. Bast is the one with like a goal.
Yeah. I don't know. I always thought Bast was more of like, oh my gosh, it's too early and I haven't drinking enough coffee yet. But
this is my first cup of coffee.
Yeah, there's the protagonist, and then there's the character that helps the protagonist along their way. So he's leading the protagonist where he wants the protagonist to go. And I don't know, Kvothe starts the story and ends the story the exact same way. And then I know like book 3 is supposed to be like getting closer to the present and explaining why Kvothe is like just wanting to die, staying at an inn, pretending he's not who he is and like has lost the ability for magic. And book 3 is still a myth. It's been 10 years. I'm like, how do you all fucking deal with this?
We just reread books 1 and 2. Now, Patrick Rothfuss has said that like he intentionally put things in book 1 that even the most careful eye wouldn't catch because you don't know to look for it until you've finished book 1 and read book 2. And so like they're designed to be reread that way where like you just, it's not that you didn't notice it the first time, it's that you could not have noticed it the first time because it's a new lens through which with new information that you're approaching the material. So like there's like, I don't know if that's like 10, 15, 100 years of him writing book 3 enough worth to discover in your rereads, but there's some rereading to do between now and then.
I don't know. It's just like maybe me because like, yes, I also went to art school for people who were saying like as soon as I started having like this conversation in my own head about like character arc and like successful storytelling, I had like the little asshole kid in class who would always go like, well, does a story need to have a point to be valid? And like everyone in the class, I'm telling you right now, I'm sorry. Everyone wants to punch you in the face, that kid. Because there's always one kid who's like, does a story need a point to be valid? And it's like, fucking yeah, that's why we're in school. Like,
well, so if we were reading it, basically like if we read what Chronicler is writing down, because like Chronicler is not writing down the innkeeper right now. So like if we read like the story that he's writing, which is Kvothe as a baby, Kvothe as a kid, Kvothe at university, is that a satisfying character arc for you?
It would be more satisfying because that character grows and changes throughout the book. However, it is just left off at a point where you're just like, well, we'll talk more later. And it was like, and I know how long.
Well, the conceit of the trilogy is that it's day 1, day 2, and day 3 of Kvothe telling his story.
I picked up on that, but it's just like how long he takes to put out books. It's like, you are a demon, sir.
Apparently, he said at a con that he's a lot crueler than any of us realize because what we're all waiting on is, in fact, the conclusion to a very long prologue, which to me means that the real story is the present day.
It. That is fucking it. Yes, it's a very long prologue. And it's like the present day story is the actual story, but you get so little of it. So, like, from a successful story arc character telling perspective, I don't, like, it's arguable, is it truly successful? But you know, that's just me being a nerd and picking it apart. If I'm just going to be like someone who loves fantasy stories, I'm like, yeah, this has a lot of cool shit in it. Like there's a lot of adventures and the magic system is thought out and like scientific. So like it arguably, like not arguably, like I think objectively speaking, it's a very good book. It's just like me being a little nerd who studied theory for 4 years. I'm just like, so.
Do you plan to read Wise Man's Fear?
I don't know, maybe. Here's the deal. If book 3 actually comes out, I would read it. I'm not going to fucking wait. Okay? No, 10 years? You poor bastards. Like, I can't do that.
Sure you can, because you eventually forget. You just give up. So to me, I think like the bookending it with Kvothe in the present day telling it just makes everything that happens in the past more poignant because you know, no matter his highs, no matter his lows, it's not going to end well, you know? So like that, it like paints it puts a melancholy like lens over everything that you're being told, because you're like, oh, that's so terrible that he's an orphan, and that's so terrible that this happened. Oh, but that's so great, and maybe he'll get with the girl, maybe he won't. But you know, none of this is going to go well. You know where he ends up.
That's exactly that's. I have like the other side. I'm like, yeah, there's no like stress or like thought about it, because you're like, it doesn't matter. We know where he ended up. Like all of these things that have happened.
It matters in that like we've seen that he opened with like being a very ambitious and talented individual, and now he clearly did things to get a name for himself, and he also lost all of it. So like he has not quite crested that hill yet for the ultimate plunge. So just like the journey. How the fuck is he going to fuck all of this up? Because he's very good at fucking things up.
Bethany's like, but at least you know he won't die. You know what, Bethany? You do know me well, and I love spoilers. I'm like, is he gonna die? Like, just tell me, so I don't have to stress.
Also, people have argued, and it's built into the text, that Kvothe is an unreliable narrator, because he says to be a good storyteller, you have to lie. So, like, arguably, everything he's telling Chronicler, is that true?
Could be bullshit. I know there's like debates among fans about certain characters and things. I don't know what all of them are. What are they? What are the debates? Because I know there's like different sides. I know some people hate Denna.
Yeah, well, a lot of people hate Denna. How do you feel about Denna?
I think Denna is an interesting literary choice. That sounds so vague.
Like, did you hate her?
I don't. I think the point of Denna is that I think I heard somewhere that people were like, no, she doesn't actually have a developed story arc. And I'm like, that's kind of on purpose, because the whole point of Denna is how Kvothe sees Denna. Like, I don't think even he knows her, and he's made her into this archetype in his mind. And that's how we're supposed to see Denna, as this like...
That's exactly how I feel.
Yeah, and
when people are like, when they talk about whether or not they like her, I'm like, it honestly doesn't matter to me whether or not I like her. It matters that Kvothe likes her.
Exactly.
She drives him crazy.
Okay. That's why we're friends, Leanna.
Yeah, like, because I think it would bother me if I truly, truly loathed her. But I mean, like, I'm like, she's like, I could see what would be interesting. Like, I'm not in love with her, but like, I get kind of why he is. Like, not to the degree he is, but like, it's really more important that she is this for him. And that affects him a great deal. So like, that's what we're here to learn about, is like how he went cuckoo over her.
Yeah. Although, does anyone ever complain about him kind of being in the friend zone with Denna?
Complain in terms of like being frustrated, or complain that she's
or just
mean?
Like, I don't know, because you know what? He is in the quote friend zone with Denna. And I think he actually has like a really grown up and complex like relationship with her, and like he's like, yeah, I'm happy that she's my friend even if nothing else happens. Like he actually has really grown up and like nuanced feel about his
because he's like, I mean, I could probably like get her like romantically, but like for a night, or I could be her friend forever, so I'm choosing friend forever. No, I'm like, oh, good for you, Kvothe, you're like a nice guy. I'm like, okay, into that. There's a lot of, we have all met men who are just like, oh, I'm going to be friends with you long enough so sex comes out. So sex comes out. Is that anatomically what happens?
I don't know.
Comes out.
I still got my hair funny, and I'm freaking
You
out
read more romance than I do, so I'll take your word for it if that's how it works.
No, it's just like, I think he's just like, yeah, like I still like her as a person. And I'm like, wow. Kind of woke for Kvothe. Well, not for Kvothe. He's just like, yeah. I'm like, okay, I like you.
I mean, so that was my favorite thing to say about Kvothe is that he's the smartest dumbass and the dumbest smartass. That like, he's very, very bright, and he's so dumb. Like, he does some really immature bullshit, but also he's surprisingly wise and mature sometimes, and he's kind of like both.
I feel like he's a little bit Ferris Bueller-y. We're just like, it'll probably work out. Let's go.
Okay, so there's theories. You don't see that much of Ori in the first book. She's a little bit more in the second book, but so there's like a million theories about who Ori really is.
Okay.
And there's theories about who Bast really is, of course, and like what Bast's like motivation is. Like, why does he give a shit about what Kvothe's doing? Like, how did that come to be? Like, what's his Endgame, about who Chronicler is.
Do they come back in book 2 for more? And so the theories are more pronounced?
Yeah, because like obviously you see more of Bast and you see more of Ori, so like there's more and you learn more about the world, so you have more ideas for how they could be connected to the world. So those are 2 ones. Obviously there's theories about, because like what you hear from the book jacket and from the beginning is like sort of the legend of Kvothe, like that like sort of laundry list of things he's supposed to have done. So you've seen a few in book 1, like he was expelled from the university. Or wait, no, that's in book 2. He burned down the town of Treven. Like there's like in that list of like, you may have heard of me. So like there's theories about, so by the end of book 2, obviously you've seen a few more of those things occur that are in that list, but not all of them. So there's obviously theories about how we get to the rest of the list.
Yeah.
Or like, because it's called the Kingkiller Chronicle, who is the king that he's gonna kill? Stuff like that.
I don't know. I've only read book 1. I kind of like Ori.
I really like Ori.
I like Ori. She, she's just little off her rocker, but very sweet. Ori, that's Ori, right? I'm not talking about the wrong character.
Yeah, she's the one that lives in the under thing.
Yeah, the underworld. Yeah. Okay. I forget character names sometimes. I'm like, that's the right person,
right? Quick. I promise this kind of related. Have you read The Poppy War?
No.
Okay. Well, I'm curious now because I read obviously Name of the Wind first, but like when I read Poppy War, like not all of the Poppy War, but like the first third-ish of the Poppy War, I was like, this reminds me of Name of the Wind, and I was not expecting that. So when you read it, I'd be curious to see if you think so too.
I don't know. I bought it and then I found out like just how depraved it gets at times, and I'm like, I don't think I can fucking handle reading that. I'm like,
and it not funny like Abercrombie.
Yeah, I'm like, I don't know if I can handle it, so I kind of just side eye it on my shelf, like I don't know if I'm gonna read you.
It's not a light read. Because like she goes to a school and there's kind of like a kooky professor who's like, I was like straight up Elodin, like it's literally Kvothe and Elodin.
I really like Elodin though, but I kind of like kooky characters. Maybe because I'm an Aquarius. I'm just like, oh, I'm out in the clouds.
Well, he's very like Mad Hatter, and Ori is very Alice in Wonderland.
They're both his friends. He just like attracts those individuals.
Did you expect Kvothe to jump off the roof?
It's not out of his character to do so.
Yup, pretty much. So like when I'm reading it, every time he's like intentionally pissing off his professors, I'm like, why are you doing this? Like,
I know.
I get it, but like no good can come from this. What are you doing?
He is younger than everyone else around him too, so maybe a bit of it is just like he's a little less mature. But then again, he's been through a lot more shit than everyone around him, so maturity level might balance out.
Which is kind of to his detriment, because at one point, like he says, like he probably should have been more afraid of Ambrose, but he just couldn't bother to be afraid of Ambrose because he had been like attacked in the streets, and he's like, he's just some fancy boy, like, and he's like, he hadn't realized, like how much Ambrose really could do to him, but to him, he was just like, it's not brave, like I can't bring myself to feel scared of him.
It doesn't compute. It's just like, I literally lived in terror every day. You're just some fucking guy.
You're just a fancy brat.
But like when you grew up that like poor, like he still is very poor and destitute, and your life is about living on the street and surviving there and dealing with very real violence, that it doesn't occur to you that it could be more damaging to deal with a mental opponent. So, and he's never had to. He's always been the smartest person in the room. Arguably smarter than Ambrose, obviously, but he doesn't.
Ambrose is rich.
He never dealt with rich people. He doesn't know what they can do. So it's a completely different kind of warfare that he's used to. It doesn't compute in his brain because he lived on like terror and starvation for so many years.
Well, I think like the multiple like levels and layers. So like he understands that a rich person can transactionally buy somebody off, like a 1-to-1, but it doesn't occur to him how like extensive Ambrose's reach could be, where like it's not even him doing it, that he gets a person to get a person to get a person to not get a person to, like that he has a network that he has control of, that's like the wider picture that it never occurred to Kvothe that could affect him. Yeah. And you're like, buddy, you brought this upon yourself.
He doesn't really understand.
Shouldn't have put that hornet's nest.
Yeah, it doesn't compute to him. He has like a completely different reality from that.
He's learning.
Kvothe's reality is interchangeable, I think. I don't know. I don't think everything that happened actually happened. Like everything that he's told us in the stories has actually happened. But he's throwing some flair into the story. Mm-hmm. And, so I don't know. I think there are some lies in the story, and maybe book 3 would tell you which ones are the lies or not.
Or not. We'll never know. Book 3 will never be published.
Or they might just never tell you.
Someone made like a mock-up joke cover of the book that renamed it Magic and Student Debt. I was like, yeah, that's accurate. That's the plot.
Surprisingly, a lot of the book is about student loans. Like, yeah. I didn't like, guys, this is about wizards. What?
Wizards have bills.
I'm like, oh man, they can't just magic their bills away. You gotta get student loans in Fantasyland.
For me, like, so a lot of people who don't like the book find it boring for that very reason. That like plot wise, like, it's not that nothing happens. Like quite a bit happens, from him, like is losing his family, living on the streets, going to like stuff happens. But like it's a lot of like stopping to like deal with money problems, deal with food problems, deal with clothing problems, go to class, work on a project, learn about magic. So there's like a lot of that, which to me, Patrick Rothfuss's writing style, like he could write me like an IKEA manual and I'd be like, beautiful poetry. So like I just eat all of it up. But so I'm wondering, like, because we haven't really talked about just like the style of the prose, which I feel like is like a hate or love with people.
Well,
did you hate or did you laugh?
No, I think it's very well written. I have no arguments with the writing. Some
people think it's like too flowery.
I think it works for Kvothe because he's like a bard at heart. So I think he would think that way. He would think in song lyrics, which are very flowery, especially in that time period. Like lute music. Like, tell me they didn't always sing about love songs in a lute. Like
he's Yaskier with magic.
Yes, he would think that way. So it makes sense for some of his words to be like poetic, even though it shouldn't be. And a lot of the things that he describes, like about going to, it's kind of a college story. Like, let's be real. And it's kind of interesting and can be argued not interesting that he talks about like just normal everyday life for people going to school. It's like, yeah, you have to deal with student loans even if you are a fucking wizard. And I think maybe people might think it's a little boring because how Kvothe deals with his financial problems. He doesn't have like a fun caper that's full of adventures and like crazy stuff to get money. He's like, no, I gotta go figure something out right fucking now. And he just does something boring. He's like, oh, well, I'll play at this bar and get tips, and that's how I'll pay for school. And it's like not like a fun caper where he like steals money or it's like a heist story. I think it's just very like normal things that a normal person would have to do.
Nor is he Harry Potter with parents that left him a secret treasure trove of gold.
Yeah.
Go buy things in Azkaban now. Or not Azkaban, sorry, Diagon.
Wherever it is, wherever they shop. I mean, wizards could... Where do wizards buy toothbrushes? Like, they gotta shop at like Target sometimes. Anyway, that's neither here nor there.
Also, I don't think there's Targets in the world of the Kingkiller.
Well, I mean, for Harry Potter, I'm like, do they have like a drugstore in Diagon?
Just a tiny broomstick.
Their teeth clean. Just brush your teeth. I don't know. I don't want to cast spells at my mouth. Let me brush my fucking teeth.
Don't tweet at J.K. Rowling because we'll get another one of those wizard shit in the hallways type tweets, and I really don't need that.
Yes, we're moving on from Harry Potter. I'm sorry I went on a tangent. I
kind of brought it up. It's my fault. I'll take responsibility. but I mean, kind of still related to Harry Potter, but just adjacently, because people refer to this as like Harry Potter, but for like grown-ups with real problems. Like, because it's kind of, the poor orphan boy goes to magic school where he's a prodigy. Like, there's a parallel. This is better.
I don't see a lot of the parallels with Harry Potter. This feels like much more grounded. Oddly enough, it seems much more grounded in reality. Even though it is
the magic system like has very clear boundaries and like
it's like chemistry. Yeah.
And I think the reason that Kvothe's kind of Mary Soonest doesn't bother me is because it's not. I feel like when magic is very amorphous and soft, and they're just like, this magic is very hard. Most people can't do it. And then he was like, well, I can do it super easy, but it's not really explained. But like, because there's so much explanation about like what the mind has to be capable of doing in order to do this magic, and that Kvothe can do it, like, I am impressed with him. Like, I'm not just like, oh, what a fucking Mary Sue. I'm like, damn, son, you're just like a genius.
Yeah, he is. He's like, child prodigy. Everything he does, he kind of just does well. So it makes me think that there's something else going on with him. Like, there has to be some other thing. Imagine I've only read book 1, which didn't really go anywhere yet.
There's a silence of 3 parts.
I know, but fight me. It didn't go anywhere. It was a fun story, but it didn't go anywhere. Doesn't go anywhere, but it's fun. I don't know. I forgot where I was going with that sentence.
So, like, for it to not have failed from that perspective, where should Kvothe have ended up at the beginning of the first book?
Beginning of the first book?
No, where should he, or did I say, where should he have ended up?
Ended the book?
Yeah, whatever.
I think they would have to have an event happen at the end of his, past life story that directly correlates to what's happening now to make a connection between the two. Because if there was one, I didn't pick up on it. I think it needed something that directly correlates to now and that would bring in the present. Like, why? Like, maybe in the book, like, he was fighting a creature and his magic failed for the first time. And then we're in the present and he's fighting that, like, demon creature and he didn't have magic. So it's like, I needed a correlation between the two to connect them, I think, because that would have explained, like, oh, sometimes magic does fail and why would it fail? Or how does he lose magic? Like, there has to be a connection there. And I didn't get that connection between the past story and the new story. If there was one, please tell me.
Well, to me, like, I find it interesting when it doesn't do that, because to me, it's still that question of, like, we've seen how good he is and we know that he could do this. In fact, there's the parallel of him, attacking the Dracus and the Intriban, and he's like Mr. Super, Mr. Universe, who can, like, split his brain 50 ways and no problem. And now, like, this arguably little thing comes into the inn and he can't even do the simplest sympathy. And to be like, it just, like, makes the question of, like, how did he fall so far? Like, it's making it more and more clear. Like, it's not just that he's kind of hiding away. It's not just that he decided to live in obscurity. He literally can't even do the thing anymore to, like, that realization of, like, so far, he's in hiding, and he doesn't really want to be known as Kvothe anymore. So you're like, okay, so he did some bad stuff, maybe, or, like, it's like his reputation got too much. But then to see that he literally can't even do the thing anymore, I was like, oh, things went very badly. I see. Yeah. So now I want to know more.
Yeah, especially, I get that. That's valid. I mean, you're coming off Traben when he did, like, he split apart, like, the cogs of a church and, like, crushed the dragon thing, and, like,
he was God.
He was God in that time, and then you come back and he can't even start a fire, and you're just like, there is a question.
And then,
like,
again, like,
how the fuck did that happen? But you don't have a satisfying ending because you have no clue about why it happened, and you have to go wait for another book. Fuck you.
But then there's, like, the double question, because then, like, obviously that's Chronicler's first question. He's like, wait, you were trying to do sympathy, but you couldn't. And Bast is like, shut the fuck up. Don't bring it up. Don't trigger my boy. Be quiet. So then you're like, what is Bast's deal? Because, like, it doesn't seem that he'd be the type to just benevolently want good things for Kvothe. He has a stake in this game. What is that stake?
Okay, mind you, I have only read book 1. But I am good at predicting story arcs. As you said, I took 4 years of studying them.
So this one had none, so there's nothing to predict.
What if Bast is here because Kvothe, in the present, still hasn't killed a king yet? And Bast is counting on Kvothe to kill this fucking king. So he's like, we gotta get our boy back in fighting shape. What if that happens? Like, that would be cool. That would be like a legit stake he would have in this. He would have a horse in this race, so to speak. Did I blow your mind?
I'm rereading the, like, you may have heard of me, because I was like, yeah, that's true. In the, like, his little all the things he's done. All these things that I've done. That's his song. He doesn't say I've killed kings, so he says a lot of shit.
Chronicle, and he hasn't killed a king yet. So what if Bast is like, this guy needs to kill this fucker, and we got to get him back to fighting shape? That's like a definite stake in this game.
Mm-hmm.
Did I just like blow everyone's mind with a theory that I don't even know it's true because I haven't read book 2 yet? But I feel like that would make a lot of sense.
I mean, like, because it's been a while since I read Wise Man's Fear, and I'm trying to remember, like, because obviously, like, Wise Man's Fear expands on past Kvothe as well as present Kvothe. But like, I can't remember if it's just my impression and assumption, or if it's literally in the text or not, that like the either true or implication is that the killing of a king is what is the inciting incident for the now kind of apocalyptic world that they now inhabit, that started some kind of a war. But I'm trying to remember if that's just kind of like, if we've just assumed that, or if it's in the text and I don't remember.
I don't know. I haven't read book 2. This is just me just going up book 1. And he's saying there's theories about why Bast why Bast fucking cares, and like that would be a good reason to care. If I was writing the story.
But then why does he need Kvothe to do it? Bast is clearly not helpless.
He can't do it for some reason, though. That's what book 3 is for.
And he does, Kvothe is kind of, or at least referred to by Bast as like a teacher. Like in theory, Kvothe is supposed to be his mentor, his teacher. But like, just like how they would even become connected. How Kvothe would even take someone like that under his wing.
Yeah.
Curious. Curiouser and curiouser.
I don't know. You don't get to the point where Kvothe met Bast in book 2?
No. So like that's another frustration is book 2 in terms of like how much further we get into young Kvothe's story is not much further.
Yeah.
Like it's even longer than this book, but in terms of years that have gone by, there's a lot more years that like, because Kvothe's a kid to like young adult in Name of the Wind. He ends Wise Man's Fear still like youngish adult. It's only been like a couple of years.
Yeah.
So yeah, we don't know.
They did make mention specifically in book 1, at least. This could be a foreshadowing point. I don't know. I'm just making wild observations and I'm having a good time with it.
Okay, so that's what's fun about the books though, is because they're like filled with little like pieces of lore too, where like Kvothe's always following up on lore. So like there is like for these years and years and years that we're waiting for Doors of Stone, there's stuff to discuss.
Yeah. Let me put this in there. There was a very specific story that got mentioned and never brought up again, but it fucked up Kvothe, where he was in his little hidey hole as a kid on the roof, and then he heard this other kid about to get the shit kicked out of him, and he's like, I could have helped him, and I decided not to. And what if that's how he met Bast? He's like, oh, I have the same choice. I could help this kid or I could not, and he decided to help him in this instance. And maybe like he took him under his wing because like it's like a throwaway story in the book, but it's like maybe that has like more significance later.
Mean that is that kid was Bast, or that like he remembers having
it's just like he's on his travels and he sees another kid about to get the shit kicked out of him, and he's just like, I could leave it alone or I could step in. And I think he decides to
if something like that did happen, I'd be pretty sure that Bast staged it so that he could get Kvothe's attention. I was like, don't think Bast would need rescuing. He'd be like, help me, Reshi, help me. Please save me.
Like, there's definitely a reason why he's there. I don't know if it's not necessarily altruistic or not, but I don't know. But that would be an interesting story. I don't know. I'm just making shit up that if I was writing the story, I would put into it because I would think that'd be a cool arc.
See, that's why I want you to read Wise Man's Fear. More theorizing. Because like there is stuff you learn that like from which to base to begin to base some theories and assumptions, particularly about Ori, actually more than Bast. There's a lot of theories about Ori.
I feel like Ori is ultimately going to be the one who teaches Kvothe the most about life or some magical property. I feel like her knowledge of the Under thing is pretty handy already. Yeah, no, I feel like he's gonna learn like a valuable life lesson from her. Somehow,
life lessons from her every day.
I know, but like not like, oh, I should be nice to like little orphan Annie.
I mean, like, she's surprisingly deep with her like little weird, quirky expressions. It's interesting. There's an interview with Patrick Rothfuss where like they actually were asking him about Denna. Someone asked him, "What woman fucked you over so bad that you came up with Denna?" And he was like, "I'm gonna not answer that question, but I'm gonna talk about this instead." Like, he was basically, he turned the question into just a discussion of like the assumptions you make about an author based on what they wrote. And like some of them are valid. Like he's like, I get why that assumption's made. Like that people, because he spent 9 years as an undergrad. So people like, and then you wrote a fantasy book about some kid in university. And he's like, people assume that's why. And he's like, but that's not true. Because I started writing this book when I was like my first year at university. So like I wasn't a 9-year undergrad when I started writing this. So like it has really nothing to do with it. So but then he did start talking about like what inspired him to write Ori. And there was like really this guy that like liked going in the sewers where his dad would work. And like he was kind of like not right in the head, but harmless. And like he kept getting in the sewers because he wanted to be there. And so then they made this arrangement where the city where like he was permitted to volunteer to be like in the sewer like a few hours a week. And that was like, he was not doing anything to jeopardize his like because he kept getting arrested just for being in the sewer, which is like not helpful. So his dad like would come home with stories about like the conversations that he had with this guy who clearly like saw the world a little differently. And so like he would say kind of odd things. And so that's kind of what inspired eventually Ori's character.
Yeah.
These like weird things.
But like the thing about Denna, it's just like, that's why I like both reaction to Denna in the book, because it's actually very mature. And like people who complain about the friend zone, it's like, you're in the friend zone because you complain about the friend zone. Like that's why no one will fuck you. Oh, that would piss me off. I'm glad he didn't answer that question. It's like, no, because she's a human being. Like, fuck you. Anyway, sorry. I just feel like so many people would shit on Denna. I'm not trying to defend her.
A lot of people do shit on Denna.
No,
for many different reasons. Because like, I mean, if someone shits on her just from the perspective of they find her part of the story just uninteresting, if that's their problem, I'm like, okay, well, whatever. If you happen to find it boring, like I can't really be pissed at you for that. But for people who like get mad at her for like friend zoning Kvothe, you know, that like they blame her for like not like you know, like he deserves to get laid basically. I'm like, oh no. that's not how that works.
I felt like people are gonna react, and I was like, no. Like I will throw down.
However, Patrick Rothfuss is writing of Felurian, and Wise Man's Fear leaves something to be desired from a feminist perspective.
Oh, I haven't read. I don't know who that is.
It's in his little like you may have heard of me speech when he's like, I spent the night with. He said, "No, I've spent the night with Felurian, and I left with my like life and my sanity or whatever." Because she's like a mythical creature.
She's like Cersei.
Kinda. Okay. That's a good comparison. Like she's not exactly Cersei, but something like that.
Something like that.
There's a very large, unnecessarily large chunk of Wise Man's Fear is devoted to Felurian. It's a little much.
Okay. It's not like squelching, is it? Like Abercrombie. There's squelching? No,
it's very like man's first fuck is A+.
Maybe that's the part he's lying about. It's like, I did everything right. I was great.
It's very wish fulfillment-y, which is why like I do like to justify that part as being like Kvothe is telling the story and he told you he's an unreliable narrator. Of course he told the story of the first time that he was with Felurian being like a legendary sex god. Of course he told it that way.
I'm not gonna be like, well, it was over in 10 seconds. We tried again though. It's not a fun story.
You're not telling that story.
The same reason in romance novels you don't have like average sex. No one wants to fucking read about sex they can have.
Both in the present day is like, if Denna reads the story, I need her to know that I'm a sex god. So that
I'm good at
someday
there's reasons for you to have sex with me.
But there's some really interesting things in book 2, like apart from like Felurian is Felurian, whatever. But like because Kvothe does leave the university in book 2. So you see like geographically more of the world and like meet there's new characters and new politics and just
I was just thinking of theories. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was like, you're shocked that there's more to the world?
No. I was like, ooh, if he gets kicked out of the university, because Ambrose did something, we know that.
Well, again, his like little legend of Quoth is I got expelled from university at a younger age than most people are admitted.
Mm-hmm. But he also said Ambrose got him kicked out. So if he gets kicked out and Ambrose did it, he's like, hey, guess what? I no longer have to abide by the rules of the university. I'm like, is he just going to kick his ass? Because he doesn't have to abide by those rules anymore? Malfeasance. I'm already kicked out. Fuck you.
We're pretty sure there's still laws of the land, though. It's not just the university. What are you, Hermione? She needs to sort out her priorities. You can't expel me, so I'm free. Kill.
No, tell me he wouldn't have that thought. Like, tell me he wouldn't.
He already has that thought now when he's in the university.
He's like, ooh. So I'm already expelled? You can't do anything else to me?
Considering how precarious his position is, you're like, dude, why are you risking all of this?
Just who he is as a human or wizard, whatever he is.
Although, like, I laughed so much at the song that he writes, that he sings the jackass one. Like, I genuinely laugh out loud at that.
Yeah, and he's just making a little shit. He's like, yeah, and I posted an apology on every place I could paste it in town, and I wrote the whole song lyrics about why I was so sorry. I wrote this lyric about him being an ass. I'm like, oh gosh, both like. Stop poking the hornet nest. Stop. Like, we can't be surprised you get stung.
It's like when you're watching him, you're like, I totally get it. And I'm very amused. And this is great. But also, like while I'm laughing at the song, I'm also just also so nervous. Because I'm like, but you know you're going to get in trouble. Like, this is very funny, but you know you're going to get in trouble. Why did you do this?
Like, oh, no.
Like, I feel like the readers... Idea. Like, the readers are Quoth's friends, because Quoth's friends are always like, bro, that was so funny, but why?
I loved his friends. I loved his friend. I can't remember his name, so one of them's just a soft boy, and I'm like, I love him.
Somebody's like crying at the song that Quoth got his talent.
Why did you not tell me? Don't ever play it again without telling me. And he's just like uncontrollable. I loved it. I loved his friends.
The shit they give him for Dana, where they're like, oh, we haven't seen you in a while. I guess you've been with Dana.
I think his friends are A+. I like those two guys. I don't know what happens to them after he leaves the university. Did you ever see him again? Probably not. Or no, yes, no. Just not going to tell me. Okay.
I mean, they're not at the inn. They don't work at his inn in the present day, so clearly they part ways.
Mm-hmm. I like. But
man, you got to read kind of.
I know one of them. His other friend, I kind of just felt like he was like really Russian. I don't know. Like he'd be like, "I fight bears,"
because of his like mild accent.
Yeah, he's like. He's like very Russian. I fight bears, and he hangs out with Soft Boy, and they both hang out with both. And I'm like, it's such like a weird dynamic that I'm into it.
Just like how frustrating it is that like Quoth has like devoted his entire life and like life's blood to getting to this fucking university so that he can research the Chandrian. And the first thing he does, gets kicked out of the library. Can never go to the library. You're like,
he does not have good sense. Like he's very smart. God damn, do you have bad sense of like when to back off of shit? Like he has no common sense at all. Like bless his heart, but like, bro, take a day. You just got whipped. Like, what are you expecting to happen? Like, okay, bro.
Which is why I do appreciate when like Elodin tells him that he won't teach him because the one thing he hasn't demonstrated is like the patience and good sense that you need to have if you're going to be studying naming. Like, nah. You might be smart, but you're also dumb as fuck. Okay, so what I've been ignoring comments entirely because I'm a terrible moderator. So I'm going to try to not be terrible.
Bring up.
All right. Okay, so people love the book because it's great.
It is objectively, it is a good book. I gave it 4 stars, guys.
Yeah, which this is kind of what Bethany's saying when I was saying that like it's the Easter eggs that kind of keep you going, keep you rereading.
I just don't ever reread books, so it's not like it doesn't work for me. I don't have time to reread books.
After you read Wise Man's Fear. Okay, wait. Bethany said it's a vending machine?
Who? Why did I say who? Who?
I am a vending machine.
I'm not a person. Sorry, I don't know why I went there.
Bethany, we don't know what you mean by this. So let us know. It kind of killed it for me. Yeah, we talked about Fullerian sex god.
Terry Goodkind rabbit hole. I haven't read any Terry Goodkind. I'm a terrible iconic fantasy
Terry
reader.
Goodkind. In my opinion, the fourth book in the Sword of Truth series was bonkers, banana cuckoo, and very sick things were in it weirdly. When I remember that whole book, I was just like, what is happening? Then I kept reading them.
I didn't have your further text. It's weird that it's here.
I think she's talking about Wise Man's Fear. That a lot of the world building comes.
I think maybe the whole thing.
Yeah.
Hi, Bethany. Sorry, Bethany's our friend, so we're.
Well, or also just the fact that whether or not if he has a character arc, that people are also there just for learning the Easter eggs of the lore and who the Chandrian are and all of that. The writing. I've never read anything by Kristen Hanna. Have you?
I don't know. I don't know.
I think she wrote The Nightingale, historical fiction. I think The Nightingale and another one that are World War I, World War II kind of things. Never read it.
Don't know. Maybe.
Yeah, he's a flawed protagonist, most def. He is kind of a Gary Stu, but also I've explained why I don't mind that. So did you to that point, did you think he was a Mary Sue, Gary Stu?
I think he's a bit naive about things.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think he's really seen enough of the world and stepped out of himself enough to really understand how it works. He is very much just putting himself in, everything revolves around him in his world, which is same for everybody, but I don't think
he doesn't have the bandwidth for anything else.
Yeah, he doesn't. So that makes him kind of naive. He doesn't understand the whole Ambrose thing. He just doesn't understand. There's a naivete because he hasn't experienced enough of the world. And the parts that he has experienced have been very specific. So there is a naivete to that. And I think he also is just a little Ferris Buellery where he's it'll probably work out. Let me just go. He just
did it bother you how much of a genius legend prodigy he is? Because I think a lot of people find it really annoying that he's good at things kind of immediately.
I wasn't annoyed by it. It didn't bother me. I don't really have a good reason.
I was to me, I feel it's handled well enough to where enough other things. He's bad at other things enough to where it balances, because he's not also virtuous, kind, charming, wonderful, also good at every. You know what I mean? Where he's kind of a genius, and there are people that are that good, that are that genius. So it's believable to me that he would be, and then equally inept at human things.
He also goes on to tell how he's and I may have cheated a little. He's also I listened to all those answers before I went into orientation, but whatever, it's fine. So
I did love the whole the birth of a legend type moments where you learn that he's Kvothe the Bloodless because he literally ate some herbs to make him bleed less and hurt less, and so he has this legend now for not crying out, but he was really just a kid being I don't want to hurt, and I don't want to ruin my shirt, so I'm gonna take this, and then from that spring the legend, and then when he realizes that he has a legend, he's psst, psst, how about some more rumors about me, because having a reputation is good.
But that also goes into the unreliable narrator situation. I don't think everything he's saying is how it actually went down.
Yeah, but I mean, a lot of them are kind of unflattering things. He built the reputation for having godlike powers and never bleeding and whatever. And I love the parts in the inn when the people who are living there, the townsfolk, are well, and then stories. What Kvothe did was blah blah blah. No, it went like this.
Yeah,
I love that. So here's an interesting one: if Kvothe isn't the Kingkiller. Because I guess that's another thing that we may all just be assuming, because Kvothe's the main character and it's the Kingkiller Chronicle. Maybe he's not the killer.
Maybe it's Denna and everyone will revolt in the streets.
Girl power. So yeah, I mean, well, for me, like if this is in reference to Felurian, I agree. If it's in reference to Denna's great. Leave her alone.
I don't really think it is a romance. I think it's just an idealized. It's his first like experience with like loving another human who isn't like family.
And also just like,
I mean?
like your first crush at that age, and considering his life circumstances.
Yeah. So
to me, like Denna, it's very similar to how he feels about music, where it's just kind of this all-consuming obsession, and it's more like it's less about how romantic it is and more just about what it means to him.
Like, yeah, she's the myth and the legend to him, you know? So I think that's the point of Denna. We agree. We're friends.
Wait, are you saying the vending machine is the sex?
oh, if I put enough friendship tokens in, sex will come out. That's it. We figured it out.
Oh, got it. Oh boy. I didn't think that would happen in the Kingkiller conversation. Okay, so I definitely had a question and now I lost it because I'm on sex tokens. Talent pipes of a different kind.
I don't know. I'm still going on about the idealized thing and how his brain works. Like he has very few things and he latches onto them very hard. Like when he finally gets his own loot again in the future, and then Ambrose breaks it and he lost his ever loving fucking shit.
Literally called the wind.
Called the wind. Yeah. He was so far in his subconscious. Was what the professor's name? Elodin. Elodin had to be like, you had a bear inside your head, and I made the bear like stop being a bear. Because as soon as Elodin spoke the word to him, he's like, he just like short circuited.
Like, the way that Elodin explains things in general is just like, that sounded like it made sense. And then I thought about it and was like, wait, what?
No, it makes sense to me because I have this chaotic energy. So I'm just like, yeah, that makes sense.
It reminded me so much of like, have you seen, you've seen Rosencrantz and Guildenstern Are Dead, the Tom Stoppard play that's about Hamlet.
I've read it. I haven't seen it.
When Hamlet, like the actual Shakespeare Hamlet does his Hamlet-y lines and then leaves again, and either Rosencrantz or Guildenstern are like, half of what he said meant something else, and the other half meant nothing at all. Like, that's Elodin.
It means things to him, but his brain isn't on the same wavelength as everyone else. So what he's saying.
One of my favorite things I remember from the first time I read it, and I loved it again the second time, is like when he explains naming, about how it's like trying to describe a pencil like with itself on itself. Like you can't do it. You can't use words to describe like naming. Like that like analogy worked for me. I was like, yeah, I see what you're getting at.
Yeah, it's intangible in a way, and I don't know. I like it. There are things that are intangible, and you can't explain them. You just have to experience it.
Yeah, I mean, sympathy is a magic system. I definitely found myself feeling like, so if I like tried real hard to like split my brain, could I do this? It seems like kind of like a real thing.
Well, I like that it was really thought out. Like every part of it made like a logical sense about how like they're equal and opposite reactions. It was very scientific based, even though it's magic. So the magic system was exquisite. Like I thought it was really thought out. There was a lot of like basis.
I also liked like for a harder magic system, it's also very soft because it's very much like subject to like human ability. So like there's very clear rules and boundaries to what is possible, but it's also the limit is you. So like it's not like, because like when magic is too contractual to me, it loses something to me where it's just like, well, if you say this word, this thing happens, versus you say this word, but you have to like there's skill in your own abilities and brain and willpower and physical power. So like there's all these other like human variables, which is why like it's not a soft magic system because there's very clear rules, but you can't just pick up a manual and do it, you know?
Yeah. No, I just like that it made sense because sometimes it's just like too all over the place and you're just like, because reasons, that's why. And this one's like, here are all the reasons. So I like that it was concrete, it was solid. So it's a good foundation for a magic system. But yeah, Kvothi's just like an obsessive soul. He gets very, very attached to things, and like Denna, a loot, because he has so few things. So I think that's just his personality. And then he called them.
I mean, when you've had such loss in your life too, then you appreciate the things that you do have.
Yeah, so I think that explains a lot of his relationships to people, places, and things. It's just he's just kind of an obsessive person. He fixates quite a bit.
Yeah. He's definitely an obsessive personality. Like just his like mission. Like it isn't to a degree understandable that you'd want to find out about these things that killed your parents, but a lot of people would at some point give up. You know, be like at first, like when your parents were first killed, to be passionate about it, but to carry that passion into adulthood to where that's still his driving force, as opposed to sort of being like, it's a very upsetting and like I would like to know, but like I've moved on. Like I've closed that chapter of my life. He's still Dutch Chandrian. Where are they? I will leave everything because I heard a rumor.
He keeps pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing because he doesn't know when to stop.
He just
for everything in his life. Yeah.
That's it.
Everything in his life, he just keeps pushing. Like he took like he was talking about how many like credits, out of lack of a better word, he was taking that semester at school, and everyone's like, "How are you not dead? Like, when do you sleep?" He's like, "I don't," and they're like, "We know." He just keeps pushing. He doesn't know what a limit is, and that's ultimately, I think, going to be part of his downfall.
Which is also like because he is so good at things, he is smart, he is talented, but even then, like he goes too far. Like he's like almost killed himself, like just doing the magic thing, like pulling too much heat from his body, or like when he was a kid and first learning things, like So like even then, like I appreciate those are the mitigating things that make him not a Gary Stu to me, because he does make those kind of like he goes too far, and you're like you can be good at something, but knowing your limit is part of being good at something.
Yeah, I think he's not good at knowing his limit.
Quoth is literally Mean Girls, the limit does not exist.
Until something explodes, and he's like, well, I guess there was a limit. Like
he becomes a magicless innkeeper because the limit found him.
I don't know. I like my theory that the king hasn't been killed yet, and that's why Bass needs him to do it. I like my theory.
Wise man here to expand on your theories.
I don't know. If I was writing the book, I think that'd be an excellent arc. So I'm sticking to it. I'm sticking to my guns.
I had a friend that her theory for why it hasn't been published yet was that Rothfuss wrote book 3, where in the middle of Kvothe telling day 3 of his story to Chronicler, he like has a heart attack and dies and doesn't finish his story. And the publisher's like, well, we're not fucking publishing that. And Rothfuss was like, well, that's what I wrote. They're on a standoff for 9 years.
Is it like they're both like under 30 still? Like,
yeah.
It'd be unusual.
You could have a heart attack at 30.
You could. It's unusual.
He's been under a lot of stress.
Working at an inn?
I mean, there's like demons and shit in the forest.
Yeah, but like recently, not like all the time. Or maybe, I don't know. We don't know. We're not up to that point in the present yet.
I also, so like, to me, the book, like, it's beautifully written and there's like lots of lore to like peck through, but I personally just feel like one of the top reasons I enjoy it is the atmosphere that Rothfuss paints in a way that I really feel like I can get lost in. Like, it feels like a lived-in world that I can feel like I'm at inns and at a university and like I'm like living in this world. I don't know if you felt that way.
No, I think like I said, I have no complaints with the writing style. I think it was well written. And all the places do feel like they are lived in. That's the best way to describe it, actually. I agree. They have like a sense of time and place and like solidity. You're just like, yeah, I can exactly picture how everything looks and like how the roads would feel and like how long it takes to get to place. Like it's all thought out. And it goes into the magic system. It's all thought out. There's a lot of thought put in.
Just like the fact that like when he hears the rumor about like the wedding and the Chandrian might have been there, that it's not just like, well, off I go to discover. He's like, well, okay, well, we need money to get the horse. And if I get a horse, I need a good horse. And we need food. I need to, like, what am I going to do with the horse when I get there? Like, can I ride there in one day or not? I can't if I push the horse too much. Once he gets there, he's like, well, I don't need the horse now. And like all of those little things that like, you're like, yeah, because like, you can't, unless it's a fairy tale, be like, and off I went to discover the thing. Like, there's a lot of logistical steps in between that and that.
Yeah. Oh, both. I mean, he's a very interesting character. Obviously, we've talked for an hour about him. So, like,
really just about him predominantly. Yeah.
I like the book. It's just like, I didn't think it was successful in the present day part of the story. Like, it didn't go anywhere. We didn't learn anything. We didn't change. But Probably not. Probably not. It's been 10 years, guys. Like,
I mean, I know that because, like, I think he does deal with mental health issues, and then like people, every time he meets with people, they're like, "Where's book 3?" Like, you can imagine that would get in your head a bit to where you like you don't even want to touch book 3 because like people are so aggro. Plus, you're never gonna satisfy people. It's been so long. There's so many theories. No matter what he writes, people are gonna be like, "Well, that was disappointing."
Yeah, people are still gonna be mad. You can't please everybody. But at a certain point, you have to fucking finish it. You can't just let it fester forever.
He like showed a picture a long time ago of like a finished draft for book 3, and that he's just been editing it this whole time because he's a perfectionist. Like, I think it did take him 9 years to write the first book. It's just nothing had been published yet, so no one was waiting. So like, he has a precedent for this. It's just now we're waiting. That wasn't true before.
Yeah.
It's kind of like with musicians with like their first album, like their second album is often people think is shitty, but that's because like you didn't know the band for the 10 years that they wrote all the music, that the best of that music ended up on that first album. And then a year later they come out with the second album. Of course it's shittier because that they only spent a year on it versus the 20 that you didn't see on the first one.
Yeah. Fair. But yeah,
maybe that's where Felurian.
I don't know.
Stuff in there for himself.
Well, I mean, he's such a little virgin in this book. He's never even kissed anybody. He's just so like pure and innocent in this book, and is like, oh, just kiss the kid. You know,
like you're gonna start singing Sebastian, like, you know, kiss the girl.
I will Sebastian the shit out of him. I will be his like crustacean wingman. Watch out.
You don't know what you want until you have it. I don't know what that's in reference to.
Maybe it's just life. Or the book 3. You don't know what you want until you finally have it.
Do you know about or intend to read, because you wrote a novella that's about Ori, just about Ori, The Slow Regard of Silent Things, which a lot of people hate.
I don't even really have Wise Man's Fear on deck right now, so I don't know.
Have I not succeeded in convincing you to pick up Wise Man's Fear?
No, you'll keep talking about it enough that I know I'll eventually read it.
I'll just pick it for another month, and then you'll have to read it.
We've been friends long enough. I know you're gonna be like, you should read this. You should still.
Guess what I picked for February? It's perfect
talk about what we picked
because of all the sex stuff with Felurian. So it's a perfect Valentine's book.
Is it?
Wait, I think I showed you the Latvian cover for Wise Man's Fear is Felurian. Like, that's apparently what they think Latvians are into. It's atrocious. I will show you.
Okay. Oh, bye. Okay, I'll just distract. Hi, everybody. It's by myself.
Wait,
I can't like select because I can't select comments to put up, but Miss Macabre said these books are like ordering a 3-course meal and the chef walking away before dessert. Oh, sick burn.
Yeah, it is a bit.
What?
I agree that it is like the chef
walking away before dessert. Away. Yeah, I'm like that's a solid comment.
Got it. Wait, no, I don't got it. There we go. Wait, no. Damn it, it moved. I got this.
Lol.
Okay. This is the Latvian cover for Wise Man's Fear. Yeah. That's Felurian.
Just come to my bosom, sir.
I am a sex god. So that's what you're in for. I know you're excited.
Right. Fair enough. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe I'll like her. Who knows?
But yeah, this is a really good part of Wise Man's Fear, which is not a sex thing. It's a long fucking book, and like the sex thing is really long, but in terms of like proportionate to the number of pages that are in the book, most of it is not that. It's just the part that sticks in your fingers. You're like, but why was that so many pages? Was that necessary?
Took a vote it was, I guess. I need enough pages to properly tell of my sex godness.
Oh, it's so bad.
Yeah.
But
so
a reason to read it.
Should we discuss or tell everybody about next month's book?
Oh, I was about to say that. We're on the same thing. Okay,
so
since you picked
it, December is going to be the live show on my channel. It's going to be right after Christmas, so we can all work off our Christmas meals. And we are going to be reading Inna Holidays by Christina Lauren, complete opposite of this book. It is a contemporary romance, but it's basically like Groundhog Day during Christmas. So she keeps dying every day and has to figure it out. So there is a murder subplot and also Christmas.
Happy Christmas.
Happy Christmas. So that's our Christmas read. It's not really a bodice ripper. It's in the bodice ripper category of this book club, but it is a contemporary romance.
But no bodices will be ripped, you say?
There could be. I don't know what their life is.
I think this is a contender for the bodice ripper side of the club.
No one's wearing a bodice, though. Her titties are just out. They're already out.
Right.
The bodice has been ripped.
It's been ripped. Oh, apparently Bethany will also be reading it.
Yay! Everybody's going to read it.
Is it
I read a lot by Christina Lauren, though. This is just me being a person who's read a lot of romance, but like Christina Lauren is a writing duo, and they've written a lot of books. And their books have changed in like when they started doing standalones, their writing styles got different. Like some of their very early books are just like the smuttiest things you could think of. They're so smutty. And then they started doing the standalones and they got progressively less smutty. So there's that. And also like they were funnier when they were smuttier too. I don't know. I like the early stuff better than the newer stuff, but we'll find out.
Is it like campier?
I don't know. It's just funnier. The situations are funnier in the originals, but there's also a lot more like fucking. A bodice ripper. We're just like using it as a blanket term for romances. You know, the smutty bits is just like just rip the bodice open and get at it. We're just using a blanket term. Yeah,
love can't.
There's a lot of romance covers with bodices just overflowing or open and covers of books.
They meant 1,000, but yeah. So like 80, like 80 pages of Florian is a lot of pages, but out of 1,000, it's also not the majority of the book.
I think it would make sense, just knowing who Kvothe is as a character in this book, that he would also kind of obsess. If this is his first sexual experience, like he would fucking obsess for 80 pages about it. Is it his first sexual experience or not?
Again, that's why it's cringe, because he's a sex god the first time.
He fucking called the wind over a lute. Okay? His first sexual experience after all of like the blue balling that has gone on in his life, and he finally is getting some, he is going to obsess about it. He won't be able to stop fucking this lady for a bit. Like, that goes with his character.
Florian has Jenna to thank for all of this pent up sex.
Yeah. He wouldn't be able to stop fucking this lady. He's like, you're gonna let me? Oh my gosh.
Coming for days.
He would be obsessive about it. I mean, let's be real. He did not do well the first time, regardless of what he said. He's gonna have to keep doing it a few times to practice.
I just come back to the fact that he's an unreliable narrator. The Adema Rue in him would, of course, talk about the sex godness.
Yeah. Like,
I do love how that's woven into it. Like, another thing that makes the world feel lived in isn't just that, like, okay, we're told that he grew up in a traveling troupe and that's just it. But that, like, throughout the book, we keep getting snatches of, like, how people regard the Adema Rue based on, like, how they respond to finding out that he is, or they make offhand comments not knowing that he is, and he, like, gets, like, miffed because they're insulting him. And, like, all those, like, little things that it feels like there's, like, lived in, just, like, you know, colloquialisms and folklore and idioms and like prejudices and bigotry that's like sprinkled in.
Yeah. I don't know how to say it better than you, that it feels lived in. Like that's how it feels. It feels like it's based in a reality that exists in this book. Not our reality, but it feels like a reality. Like this is like real life.
So I think Universal Studios should tear down Wizarding World and build Eimer.
I think it might. I don't know. It's not as like family friendly. I would say.
Sure, it is.
Orphanville. Let's go look at him as he gets beaten in the streets, guys. Look at this fun family activity.
Maybe we'll replace the Flight of the Hippogriff with some fire-breathing, Dracus situation.
Who's like humping fires because it's a horny Dracus.
Because it's also on drugs.
That Dracus got high and like fucked the shit out of a campfire. Like there are some things that are not family friendly. Barbie's just like, you get it. You get the Dracus. Like Dracus.
But Universal Studios isn't necessarily family friendly. Like it's doing adult films. I don't mean adult films. I mean films for grown-ups.
Yeah, I think
the Mummy isn't.
Like I feel like it's kind of family friendly.
I just want someone to build this place so I can visit it. I want to go to a tavern, and I want someone to be playing the lute. I want him to have ginger hair.
We'll just have to make it. We'll just do it. Done.
TBQH, I feel like you could do like a Kingkiller day at Wizarding World, because a lot of it basically looks like how I'd picture most of this, taverns and castles and things.
Mm-hmm.
Go to the Three Breadsticks and call it the Aeolian.
I just expect like a different color palette, but like similar buildings.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like Name of the Wind has much more reds. It would have like a kind of a red tone palette. I feel like the wood if they were gonna have wood walls in a building, it'd be redwood.
I see that, yeah.
Yeah.
But I was still mean like the university archives, like I still pretty much picture like stone building, like Hogwarts with like doors.
Yeah, they're like it's like a wine cellar in like where it's like if you can keep wine in a damp cave, it's excellent. And I'm like, I think that's gross, but whatever.
See, they could sell cheap little lights that are sympathy lamps, souvenirs,
not candles.
No candles. No candles. You are banned forever. Okay.
Anyway.
Well, any final thoughts about the Kingkiller Chronicle? Now that you've finally read this legendary book,
finally read it.
Live up. Well, okay, wait, I do have a question. So, like, because it was one of those books that's like, The Name of the Wind. Like, you've seen it. It's like, it exists. So, like, did you have a concept of what it would be like? And was it the same or better or different or?
I thought Kvoth would be more sarcastic. I thought I feel like he'd be funnier about his own story and make more jokes. I thought he'd be more like Ferris Bueller, where he'd be like a little bit more sassy. And I thought it was going to be funnier than it ended up being. Like, there's funny moments, but it's not really a comedy. So
like
I thought
Jackass.
I just thought it was going to be sassier than it ended up being.
Yeah, it's not sassy. It's an ode to musicians in debt.
Yeah. I thought he was going to be a bit sassier than he ended up being. So I went in with a different tone in mind. But as far as like fantasy elements, like I could see it that way. I didn't think it would be so scientifically based. But I mean, it's a iconic fantasy story, and I feel like it felt like an iconic fantasy story. So I just expected more sass.
No, you just get to be sassy about it.
Like you said, unreliable narrator, and he does all these things. I'm like, oh, he's sassy, and he wasn't.
No, it's subtler. It's the fact that he just plants the seeds of doubt, and then is like, "Do you think all this is true? Mm-hmm. Maybe not. I did just tell you that I lie."
All right. He is. Anyway, I know. We all know you like it. There's no point asking that.
Okay.
You have lots of them. You have different language editions. You have many, many copies of it.
I don't have him with me right now, but I have a custom Funko of him with a little lute that's in a lute case that's removable.
I got this big ass copy of it that's much floppy. I surprisingly got it at a library book sale when those were still a thing. So I got this for $1.
Oh, one kind of last impressions question, because you've obviously seen, before you read it, you saw that cover and you've seen this cover. Which one do you think is more representative of the subject or like of the content?
The green one.
This one?
Mm-hmm.
I agree. I mean, I think the blue one is too.
It makes it seem like it's much more serious than it actually was.
The blue one, I think, makes me think more of the side of it that's to do with the Chandrian.
Mm-hmm. This one looks like just darker. Who's Viggo Mortensen's character name again in Lord of the Rings?
Strider?
No, his real name. Aragorn? Oh, Aragorn? Yeah, Aragorn. That's like his I'm coming back to be the king. I'm gonna brood in a damp room. Like that's what it feels like. It feels like that kind of story arc in the gray bluish cover. So it wasn't that. So I feel like the green one is a bit more lighthearted. So yeah, I think
like this one makes me think more of like troubadours and bards and traveling with a lute and like singing songs and telling stories.
Yeah. It feels like it has more heart.
The blue one really just like thinks, every time I look at the blue one, I just think to myself, when the fire turns blue, what to do. Like it's like that part of it.
Yeah. Brooding, a brooding hero coming to terms with his fate and like having to save the world. I'm like,
it's present day Kvothe.
Is it? He's not even doing that. He's just trying to hide.
Yeah, he did try to write a memoir. It didn't go well.
Well, I think he needs to figure some things out for himself, and that's like a deciding factor about wanting to tell his story. I think he is confused about himself and his place in the world and what he has to do. I think he needs to get back to himself. So that's my absolution. Like that's what he wants. He wants to figure it out, and he needs to tell the story to do it. So I think it's he's just like, oh well, this is convenient. I can talk shit out to a bard. Or not bard. Who's that guy? The scribe?
Chronicler?
The scribe. Yeah, the chronicler, the scribe. He's like, yeah, I can just talk shit out. And
the one that happens to be the guy that also wrote Mating Habits of the Common Dracus.
Yeah. He's like, I've read your book.
You're that chronicler. It was just so funny to me too, like obviously like when you read it before, then but like how it's like slightly like you begin to notice how often he's mentioning that book, that like he's got a copy of it, that he's reading that book, and you're like, okay, he's mentioned that book a few times. It comes into it because he actually meets with the Dracus.
He does. I liked it. I was like kind of a bummer that he had to kill it, but I was just like, they just like to party, man. Like into the
I did also love his like frustration with those plebeian locals who like burned this animal that's like so valuable to science. I feel like Kvothe at that point, he was like Indiana Jones. He was like Indiana Jones, like this belongs in a museum.
He's also like, yeah, I know these fucking dummies did it. I get it. I get it. Fuck. All right.
Like I could have paid with that.
I know, but he's just like, well, I can't go dig it up. Fuck. Like it was like his most Witcher moment, which is fuck.
Yeah. Well, it was also his most Witcher moment because he came to town and killed the demon, and they're like, wow, you saved us. And he's like, you buried it, did you? Fuck. Okay, well, goodbye. So basically, Kvothe is Jaskier and Geralt rolled into one.
If they made a baby.
Troubadour. Made a ginger prodigy baby.
Oh, little ginger prodigy baby.
That's our takeaway. Name of the Wind is about the love child of Geralt and Jaskier.
Maybe there's a lot of people who want that, who ship that so hard. There's so many people who ship that. I mean, maybe. I do like that trope, like, oh, I'm this flighty character and this gruff person, and then like they just can't stop kissing. And I'm like, yes.
Let's not lie. Geralt and Jaskier have way more chemistry than Geralt and Yennefer.
Yennefer's the Jenna of that series.
I think the actress did fine. I just don't feel like her and Henry Cavill really have chemistry.
Well, I mean, I've only read like the first book, but from what I've heard of the books, Yennefer doesn't necessarily have a lot of a backstory in it. But
I mean, not like the backstory they put in the show, no.
Yeah, and like I think the point of Yennefer and Jenna is how Geralt and or Kvothe see them. They are an archetype.
I was gonna say, like, I feel like whenever I have conversations like about Witcher, then I bring Jenna into it. If I talk about Name of the Wind, then I bring Yennefer into it because I'm like, it's very similar. I feel like people who hate Yennefer also hate Jenna, and vice versa, because it's a similar, like, it matters that Geralt loves Yennefer. It matters that Kvothe loves Denna. Like, I don't need to love these women.
Yeah, it's like, you know, it's how they see them that's the important part of it. Is not really, they're not really a character. They are an imaginary person. This is not who the real person is.
As long as like neither Denna nor Yennefer are like so horrible that I'm just like, if they were like written in a way where like I genuinely was just like, how the fuck could you love that person? You know what I mean? Yeah. Like they're like written in a way where like, oh, like I'm not especially obsessed with them, but like I guess I can see why you would be. Like they're not written in a way where I'm just like, ugh, how could you be? So I guess some people feel that way, where they're just like, they're so horrible, how could you be?
I feel like someone may have hurt them. They're projecting a bit. But this is how Kvothe is. He would definitely, this is like his first love. Like he wouldn't obsess. Like he obsesses over everything.
Well, even I love the fact that we like cut to the present day for a bit right before we get into Denna again, so that he can be like, but how do I do her justice? And Bast is like, oh, I met her.
Yeah, and they kind brown of like, hair
build up to it, and he like literally rips up whatever he said before, and is just like, how do I talk about the legend that is Denna? Yeah. Like he's still that way.
So yeah, we all agree. I think Kvothe, he's an obsessive person, and he's got some shit to work out. He's also a little shit sometimes.
He is a little shit. He's such a little shit. Would you like to tell the good people before we go the soundtrack for the book that you have identified?
I always pick a song for the book of the month, and I'm really proud of my selection this month. If you guys want to look it up on YouTube, there is a video, and it is the song entitled "I'm a Fucking Wizard" by MC Chris. I recommend it. It's fun. I feel like it's not like loop music at all. Kvothe wouldn't play it, but I feel like it's like kind of accurate.
This is going to be the Lin-Manuel Miranda version of Name of the Wind.
Yeah, like, I feel like it's kind of like being a little shit and a wizard. He's just like, I'm gonna kill you with my science skills. It's like that's how he thinks.
Call the wind, motherfucker. I think someone actually did a Name of the Wind rap on YouTube. I think someone did.
I haven't seen it, but I'm like, yeah, this is the song for this book is "I'm a Fucking Wizard" by MC Chris. It's fun. MC Chris does a lot of nerd raps. Like they have a song about Boba Fett. It's really good. That's probably the most popular song. It's called Fett's Vet. You probably heard it.
It's called what?
Fett's Vet. Like Boba Fett's Corvettes. Fett's Vet.
I see. No, I've definitely not heard that. But now I will Google it.
Movies and stuff. It's in movies. It's like if you heard it, you'd be like, oh, that sounds familiar.
Maybe.
Anyway, sorry. There you go. That's the song for the book.
I think it's all these things that I've done by the Killers.
Yeah, it could be two songs. Like, yeah, it could be both.
Yours is more fun. Mine is sad.
Mine is like, I think, young Kvothe, who is just like in the university thinking he's like, I'm hot shit. And yours is just like present day Kvothe, who's just like, all these things I've done.
Yeah. So those two songs combined. Mm-hmm. They tell the story. You don't have to read Name of the Wind. Just listen to those two songs and you're squared.
There you go. You got it.
All right. So next month
of my song ends up being that one. Yay!
Next month we're reading the opposite.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's murder in it. It is Groundhog Day.
It has little. It's very similar cover. They're practically the same cover.
I think you might like it. You did like Beach Read.
Yeah. Well, the Groundhog Day aspect of it certainly has me intrigued because that's unusual.
Yeah. So yeah, she keeps dying in gruesome ways every day, and then has to come back and figure shit out. So
yeah, I can get behind a story like that.
Yeah, it'll be fun. Hopefully, fingers crossed.
Murder is fun.
Murder is fun. No, what if it's bad? We don't know. Who knows?
It's just basically like you've seen Mad Max Fury Road.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, live, die, live again in Valhalla. What a lovely day.
What a lovely day. Also Christmas trees. Yeah, also Christmas trees. Okay, so I think that's about it, unless anyone in the comments has any final thoughts. But yeah, I think we had a really good discussion. I feel good about it.
I'm so glad you finally read Name of the Wind.
I did. I think you've probably been telling me to read this book as long as we've known each other, which is like 3 years.
Was I not correct, though, that fall is the best time to read it?
Yeah, it's a fall book. Like I was saying, it has like a red-orange color palette for me, which is like fall colors.
Just like the being in taverns and a university and like leaves. It's like some mega fall vibes.
A bit. Yeah, sure. Yeah. It's fall. I read it in fall. It could be a fall book.
It's a fall book. Even the cover, I think, looks like, well, not the blue one, but like this looks like a fall book.
Yeah. You can make an argument for spring maybe because it's green, but
actually the original cover, the original first edition, that has like the stone face that's like blowing and it has like fall leaves around, like ultimate fall cover.
Yeah.
Also Fabio Quoth.
Miss Macabre has another comment at the bottom. It's a thought I had, but I didn't say out loud. Is Quoth the king who gets killed?
Oh, this? But he can't, he's like king more like not like legitimately heir to a throne type of king. Like,
we don't know all of his adventures. Maybe he was a king. Like, like the Bloody Nine ended up being king for like a hot second in Abercrombie. Like maybe he's like, oh, I'm the king now.
It's also that I feel like that's like a trope of like old stories. The fact that he's like, he was a traveling musician or whatever, but like maybe those weren't his real parents. Maybe he was a prince that was stolen away to become like part of the Atimaru.
A changeling. Maybe he has like a little bit of fae in him.
Well, I mean, Denna notices his eyes changing color. And Bast is clearly...
and he's remarkably young looking, even though he's like in his late 20s.
And again, so, like the fact that Bast is like really tight with him. He might have some fae in him.
He could have some fae.
That's why he's a sick god.
He could have a dash of fae in his blood.
Just like salt fae, just like a sprinkling.
Salt fae. Okay, on that note, I feel like we've done it.
That does it.
That does it.
It's not gonna get better.
Okay. That's the peak.
We nailed it. All right, well, thanks everybody for stopping by. If you did, and if you didn't, we hate you. We'll see you next month for holidays on Amanda's channel.
Yeah, it'll be fun. It'll be different, but fun.
Okay, bye forever.
Bye forever.